first colony in the United States. I'm here right before Thanksgiving because a lot of people think that the first Thanksgiving was celebrated in Plymouth Plantation. It's not true. It was celebrated right here in Jamestown. In the spring of 1607, the colonists arrived in Jamestown, Virginia. They came from England. After about a 4.5-month journey, the colonists of Jamestown landed in the Chesapeake Bay and gave thanks for a successful yet difficult voyage. There were not any natives present, but technically this could be considered the first Thanksgiving, 14 years before the Pilgrims had their Thanksgiving. Let me show you around. Over here we have the original church. That was the first church in the United States, technically. This around here, I'm going to show you in the video in a second, is the original church built in 1608. There are 4 graves here of prominent members, and this is the site where John Rolfe ended up marrying Pocahontas, or it's believed that they got married in that church. They would have been married in that church. Over here we have grave sites of people who didn't survive the starving time. Some of these people were actually subjected to survival cannibalism, where after they died, they were then eaten by the colonists here to survive, because just outside these walls, the Powhatan tribe, they were trying to drive them off, so they were under constant attack here. So they were just trying to, they couldn't go out, they couldn't hunt, they couldn't farm, they were stuck inside these walls, like they were grounded. So,
Pocahontas.
What's that?
Pocahontas.
So I'll take you into the church and show you the exact site where Pocahontas married John Rolfe, right at the head of this church. So they took these walls down, but it would have been a complete structure. Right where those people were standing right there is where Pocahontas would have married John Rolfe, not John Smith, like the Disney version, but John Rolfe. This is an early map of the Jamestown fort. You can notice some buildings inside and the bulwarks on the corners here with cannons on the 3 sides. Notice it's a triangle built that way for defense. You can see the 3 ships that landed here. You can also see Chief Powhatan off to the side here. In his hand, he's got an arrow in one hand. That just shows that the colonists fear him militarily and also depend on him for food and help. This is the real-life site, or the recreation of the site. You can see again, here you've got the bulwarks here, what would be over here, and there would be a wall. You can see it stops right there, and the 3rd bulwark over here. So because the water has eroded the land, they lost this section of the fort, which would extend down here into another bulwark. Archaeologists have excavated this site and taken over 2 million objects from the ground, from just the grounds around this whole fort. It's amazing that what they've learned from these objects, and the objects are important not because of the object, but because it tells us about the lives of the people who use that object. Right now, it's marked with crosses because they're the graves of 22 bodies. 22 people were buried here during the starving time in Jamestown. They were buried here and not outside the fort like they normally would be. They were buried inside the fort because they didn't want the natives surrounding the fort during this time of siege to see them bringing bodies out, because they wanted to show that they were strong and not as weak as they actually were. So they buried the bodies inside the fort, something that's very rare here. Over here, this is believed to be a military barracks, and then this is the church that was built later on and rebuilt on top of it. The foundation is still the original foundation that was built later after the 1608 church. What's really interesting is the walls around here were made with logs that were set into a trench. If you go there today, you can see basically what it actually looks like, because when they were rebuilding this and putting new logs in, they put the logs into the existing holes where the original logs actually were. So each post is exactly how it was believed to have been originally.
So not only did they use the original positions of the holes to put the fence in, so it was an exact replica, but the fence itself is as close to as possible as they could make it, using wood that would have been used back then, using the same types of nails that would have been used back then. Back then, they were under siege from the Native Americans almost immediately. So they put up this fence in 2.5 weeks, and in that 2.5 weeks, they cut down 650 trees. Fast forward to today when we put up the replication, and it took 3.5 months with power trolls.
The English explorer John Smith was a soldier, a pirate, a slave, and a sea captain. He was crucial for the successful establishment of the first permanent English colony in the New World at Jamestowne, Virginia. He explored and mapped the Chesapeake Bay, as well as the region now known as New England. The company wanted Smith along because his military experience would help protect the colony. He was made one of 7 members of the governing council of the colony. On December 20th, 1606, Smith and his colonists set sail in 3 ships: Discovery, Susan Constant, and Godspeed. They founded the colony of Jamestown in May of 1607. However, the site they chose was mainly marshland and lacked fresh drinking water. Hunger and disease took a fearful toll, and by December, only 40 of the original 104 colonists were still alive. That month, while exploring, Smith was captured by the native inhabitants, the Powhatans. According to Smith, as the tribe's warriors were about to club him to death, the chief's young daughter, Pocahontas, intervened and begged for John Smith's life. Pocahontas' rescue is a controversial story. Some historians believe that Smith made it up, but if he did fabricate it, there's evidence that he did so to sway the British king and queen to treat Pocahontas as a heroine when she visited England. Regardless of how it happened, meeting the chief was fortuitous, as the Powhatans became an important ally in Jamestown's survival. In the summer of 1608, Smith explored and mapped the Chesapeake Bay's shoreline, covering nearly 3,000 miles. The following September, Smith was elected president of the colony's council. With winter bearing down, Smith established a strict policy of discipline and work so that food could be procured. He commanded, "He who shall not work shall not eat." The settlers worked industriously and survived the winter. After returning to England for 5 years, Smith sailed back to America in 1614. On this expedition, he charted the coast of what is now Massachusetts and Maine. In fact, Smith created the map that the Pilgrims used to reach Plymouth Rock. Smith spent his remaining years encouraging his countrymen to colonize America. He wrote dozens of publications about how settlers could achieve success in the New World, not by discovering gold, but rather through industrious work in farming, building, or fishing. He died in 1631. Were it not for John Smith's leadership and the discipline he instituted at Jamestown, the colony might have failed. Smith championed British settlement in the New World, and his maps and charts of the American coast led to British colonization of what would become the 13 colonies.